Alright, what is going on? Welcome back to another stream. We are reacting to MrBallen because my other MrBallen video failed to upload for some reason, so reacting to another one. This is one we left off. This is the one we left off this was the one that we were watching, but then I had to end the stream because it was 1 hour. And so yeah, so I'm gonna watch another one and make sure this one actually uploads this time. And then the Sidemen video that I didn't upload, even though I thought I did, but so I'll make sure to upload that one. But I will make sure to properly upload this one this time. But yeah, we reacted to MrBallen, Unwanted Guests, as you can see up here. Yeah, right there. But anyway, I've done enough talking. Let's just watch this video. Hopefully it's not too loud.
We're reminded why truth is often stranger than fiction. But before we get into today's stories,
that should be good.
Of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format,
I am.
And you've come to the right channel because that's all we do, and we upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if that's of interest to you, please offer the like button a beer and then give them an O'Doul's. Also, please subscribe to this channel and turn on all notifications so you don't miss any of our weekly uploads. All right, let's get into today's stories.
Ooh, warning, disturbing images and statements. Ooh.
In the spring of 2013, a young woman named Melissa finally moved out of her mother's house and got her own place across town. For the first few months she was living there, she never noticed anything strange. But about 3 months into living there, things started to get a little bit weird. It started with a whole bunch of hang-up calls where someone from different numbers would call, she'd answer, and she could hear them breathing, but they weren't saying anything. And then she started getting these huge bouquets of flowers delivered to her front step, but they were delivered from anonymous.
Stalker behavior.
Things in her kitchen and her living room were going missing. Things like plates, cups, drink coasters, salt shakers, forks and knives, little things, but since she lived alone and she was the only one moving these things, they really stood out. Melissa had this habit that every time she went to bed, she would unplug her TV. She had this irrational fear if she didn't do that, that it would spark a fire and her house would burn down in the middle of the night. So she was pretty obsessive compulsive about always.
That's a little bit of a weird irrational fear.
Unplugged before she went upstairs to bed. And so one night, around the same time she's getting these hang-up calls and there's flowers being sent to her door and things are going missing, she unplugs her TV and she goes up to bed. The next morning she gets up and comes downstairs and the TV's plugged in again. She convinces herself that, well, she must have forgot to unplug the TV. As rare of an event as that is, it has to be what happened. And so that night she unplugs the TV and remembers looking directly at the plug, confirming that yes, I've unplugged the TV.
I have checked level, thank you. And also it says 0 viewers, so how are you watching if there's 0 viewers? And also, I turned the video down a little bit because it was a little bit loud. Thank you very much, the person who was typing it as me. What? Hold on. Bit quiet, check level, and then you're saying level's good. Like, come on, what's going on? Oh, well, that's because I turned the video down a little bit because it was a little bit loud, so I turned it down a little bit. That's why. So, if you want to type in an answer right away instead of a delay, that would be good, thank you. Turn back up. Right, okay.
She puts it down and looks again at the outlet. It's not plugged in. It's definitely not plugged in. And then she goes upstairs to bed. The next morning when she walks downstairs, she had the sense of dread that when she turned the corner, because her TV was right at the bottom of the stairs, that when she turned the corner, it would be plugged in again, and her worst nightmare would come true, that something is happening on my first floor when I'm asleep at night. And as she comes down the stairs and turns the corner, what does she see? The TV is plugged in again. She's horrified, but has no idea what to do. It's not some malicious act. And she's telling herself, well, maybe I forgot again. But then she's like, no, I remember last night staring at the plug. I definitely unplugged it. And so she flies around her first floor to make sure, one, everything is locked, but two, no one else is in here. And when she's satisfied that, yup, it's empty down here. And
someone's coming in there.
She sits there thinking,
definitely.
well, now what do I do? Do I call the police and say, someone's plugging in my TV? You know, she can't do anything. And it was at this point that Melissa developed a very real fear of her first floor. And she began going to bed so early at night because she could not be on that floor when it started to get dark. And so imagine living alone, being afraid of going down to your first floor, how scary it would be at night when you're laying in bed, your door's shut, and any noise you hear in the house, you're going to attribute to your first floor. And so Melissa was living this absolutely wretched life where she's scared of everything outside of her bedroom. And so with that as context, Melissa goes to bed one night super early, probably like 3 o'clock. The sun's not even down yet, but she's upstairs. But eventually it does get dark outside, and she still has not fallen asleep. And so she sits up in bed and she turns on the TV. And right away, the channels on the screen start to change. And she's thinking, oh, I must be laying on the remote. But then she remembers the remote's in my hand. And so she's looking at the remote, and then she's looking at the TV. She's not touching her remote. And the channels are still cycling. Now, Melissa had what's called a skybox, which means her downstairs TV.
All right, what is that? What is playing on TV right now, the box TV? What on earth was that?
The channel, in real time, the other changed the channel. And so as she's looking at her remote and not touching it, and looking at the screen as the channels are changing, it dawns on her that someone downstairs is changing the channels. And so frozen in fear, all she can think to do is turn off her TV, because that's the one function that does not have any impact on the other TV. So she turns the TV off. And so in total darkness, in a house she's already terrified of, she is straining her ears to try to hear some sign that this is either someone's down there flipping through channels, or
yes, straining your ears. Meanwhile, you have a glass against the wall. I don't know why people even do this. This is dumb. Just listen out. I don't know why people even do this weird glass thing. Do we even do it anymore in 2025? Not. I'm pretty sure not.
TV on when the skybox was malfunctioning. And as she's sitting there, all she can hear is her own breathing, and she can feel the pounding of her heart in her chest. But she doesn't hear any sounds in her house. She doesn't hear the TV on. She doesn't hear footsteps, doors opening, none of that. It's silence in the house. So after what probably felt like an eternity, she just grabbed a pillow and clutched it in front of her and put her head into the pillow and just laid like that until she eventually fell asleep. The next morning when she gets up, the sun is out, and it's this huge relief, because suddenly, with the sunlight pouring in the windows, it was like the house wasn't scary anymore. And she's telling herself, you know what, that had to have been just some anomaly with the skybox. I bet I go downstairs and the TV's unplugged. And so she goes downstairs and the TV is unplugged. And so that for her kind of confirms that, okay, the paranoia is getting to me. I'm losing my mind a little bit. I gotta tell someone what's going on. And so as it happens, that day she was going to a family birthday party. And so when she gets there, she pulls her older brother aside and says, here's the strange things that are happening in my house with the skybox and all this. And at first, he looked at her like, really? This is what's going on? You're seeing ghosts in your house? But when she really focused on the specific things that were happening, like the plug going back into the wall 2 separate times, and then the skybox thing. So the TV is kind of wrapped up in the weirdness that's been happening in her house, and the missing items in her house. And so for the brother, it all kind of added up to, okay, this does seem a little bit weird. And he offered to live with her for a few days and just see it for himself. And as they're talking, their younger brother happens to walk by, overhears the conversation, and says, oh, I'll stay there too. For 4 days, the two brothers lived on the first floor of Melissa's house, and they don't see anything.
That's nice of them.
They don't hear anything. It's completely ordinary. And Melissa at first was reassured, but then started to think, does that mean whoever's been doing this stuff is watching my house really closely and knows that I have, protection at my house right now and they're staying away? Does that mean I'm being watched really closely? And so finally, when her brothers are getting ready to leave after the 4th day, she was practically begging them to stay. She couldn't stand the idea of staying in this house. Her brothers reassured her that she had nothing to worry about, but if she experienced anything weird, anytime, any day, just call or text and they would be there in a heartbeat. Although she did not feel reassured, it was starting to get late, at least by her standards. It was like 3 o'clock, so the sun's getting close to going down, so she needs to go upstairs. So she goes back in her house and does like 20 trips around her house to confirm everything is shut, everything is locked, no one's in the house, everything is safe. And then she goes upstairs to bed. But like most nights, she was so scared of everything outside of her bedroom door that she couldn't sleep. And as she's laying there in utter silence in her room, she hears the unmistakable sound of her back door opening. And she hears footsteps walking through her first floor. And then she hears the TV turn on. And her brothers have been watching her TV last, and they had the volume set really, really high. So as soon as the TV went on, it blared all through the house. And immediately the TV turned back off because whoever turned it on knew that that was going to wake up whoever was in the house. Melissa doesn't know what to do.
Ooh, that was a slip up from the robber.
Whatever the heck was happening in her house,
Fumbled the bag with that one.
It was like she had to think about what she was hearing to confirm it was actually happening. Now, this person is just strolling into her house in the middle of the night and flipping on the TV and blaring it through the house. And so she immediately is like, oh my God, what do I do? And she picks up her phone and she calls her brother. Then he picks up right away and she goes, someone is in the house right now. The brother's like, I will be there in 10 minutes. Do not leave your bedroom. Don't do anything. Stay on the phone with me. So Melissa's shaking out of fear and she gets up as slowly as she can and she walks over to the window to get as far away from the door, which was locked, as she possibly could. And she's glancing out the window, waiting to see her brother pull up as she listens for any sign that this person downstairs has begun walking upstairs. Finally, Melissa sees out of the corner of her eye her brother's car pulls up across the street, and he, along with her younger brother, hop out. They run across the street towards her house. They hop over the fence and they run down the alley between her house and her neighbors, and they go towards the back out of sight. She's still on the phone with him and she's saying, do you see him? Do you see him? Do you see him? Do you see him? And he says, hold on. He goes to the back of the house where he knows you can look in and basically see the whole first floor. And as soon as he gets to that spot where she's expecting him to give her a report, and he pauses, there's silence on the phone, and she goes, what do you see? And he says, okay, yep, there is someone in your living room right now. I'm going to hang up and call the police, and I'm going to call you right back. Now, Melissa knew what she heard was very real to her, but to have it confirmed by her brother right now took this to a whole nother level of fear. Now she's legitimately fearing for her life. There is a person, an intruder in my house right now, confirmed. They are right downstairs, and they've been coming into my house probably for weeks. And so her brother hangs up the phone and begins calling the police. Meanwhile, Melissa is just standing in this room, horrified, as she listens to a stranger walk around the first floor of her house. But because she was hearing the footsteps clearly downstairs, she decided she would just walk over to her door and look through the keyhole, which was oversized on her door. And if you looked through it and over to the left, you'd actually look downstairs to the first floor. You'd only see a sliver of the first floor. And so very carefully, she walks her way over to the door. And as she kneels down to look through the
Number one, I don't think houses nowadays have keyholes. It's just like those locks that you hold and you just lock it. Yeah.
keyhole, her phone rings. It was in her pocket and it wasn't on silent. It was on loud, and it was her brother calling back. And she kind of fumbles for her phone. She drops it on the ground. It's still ringing, and she finally silences it. And then reflexively, she pokes her head back and looks through the keyhole, and standing at the bottom of the stairs looking up at her is a man with a hat pulled over his eyes who's clearly heard the sound, and he begins walking up the stairs. She's falling over backwards, screaming at the top of her lungs to get her brothers inside. She hears them come charging inside. She hears this epic struggle.
Another fumbled bag, fumbled bag again.
Because it was a voice she didn't recognize, screaming, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. And then it's quiet. And so she opens that door because she wants to help if she can. And she looks and she sees her brothers have this man pinned on the stairs. He's not moving. And she sees her younger brother is holding something. And he holds it up to her and he just shakes his head, and it's a frickin' knife. And then she puts it together that the stranger in her house was carrying this knife. And before she can even take that information in, the older brother takes the hat off of this guy, and it's their mother's ex-boyfriend from 10 years ago. The same one they all believed had an inappropriate attraction to Melissa. Police show up and take him away, and he quickly admitted to sneaking into her house for months. They don't know how he got in, and he would never tell them, but he admitted that, yep, I was breaking in almost every single night. But he never gave a good reason why. He just started doing it. Police cited mental illness as the likely culprit for why he was doing it, and the family believed this could be something more sinister, but either way, he was given 3 years in jail, and the family, once again, cut all ties with him.
What kind of Scooby-Doo ending was that? It took the mask off. Oh my goodness, it's the ex-boyfriend from 10 years ago. Ah, I know, and I would have gotten away with it if it weren't for you meddling adults. Come on. Come on, man. Like, what is this? What is this? Denver Spider-Man. Okay, this should be something.
On October 17th, 1941, 73-year-old
Okay, oh, 1941, okay.
was supposed to join his friends for dinner, but he never showed up. His neighbors knew Phil was living alone at the time because his wife had recently fallen and broken her hip and was in the hospital. And so they were worried about Phil being on his own, and they thought, you know what, let's just be sure, let's call the police and have them go over and check on him. When the police arrived at his house, they knocked on the door, no answer. They tried the door handle, it was locked. They tried the other door, that was locked too. They looked in the windows, it was all dark, and they had to get another neighbor who had a key to open the door for them. When they stepped inside, there was blood everywhere, on the walls, on the ceiling, everywhere. And in the middle of the kitchen is Phil Peters, face down. He has been bludgeoned to death. The police immediately draw their weapons, and they're looking around the house thinking someone could still be here. And they clear the whole house, and there's no one there. And so a whole bunch of detectives converge on the house, and they start investigating, and they realize pretty quickly...
Let me guess, there's a secret hiding place in the house, and the intruder lives in the house secretly. That's my guess on what this is gonna be.
Strange the scene was. Nothing in the house was vandalized, nothing in the house was stolen, and Phil himself was just a very modest, retired auditor. He certainly didn't have any enemies, and so the revenge angle didn't necessarily make much sense. But then you got to remember that when police first got there before they discovered his body, the house was shut and locked, and there was no sign of forced entry. And so whoever was in there with Phil at the time of his death must have known Phil enough to have a key of their own or have Phil open the door for them. So it made investigators wonder.
Oh, I thought this was graffiti across the house. May 219. I don't know what on earth this writing is across. It's not graffiti, but I don't know why it's across the screen. And also, this is like such a cartoony house. What kind of Peppa Pig house is this? Come on. It looks like an American Peppa Pig house.
What would motivate some person that's in Phil's inner circle to commit such a heinous crime when the obvious angles, such as theft, vandalism, revenge, have basically been crossed off? Not to mention, there was virtually no evidence of who could have done this, with the exception of the murder weapon, which was this big piece of metal called a stove shaker. But the person who had used it to kill him had taken the time to meticulously wipe it off. So there was nothing on it, no fingerprints, no anything. So for months, detectives agonized over this case, but they got nowhere.
Stove shaker. I don't know what that is. Stove shaker. I'm kind of worried if I Google that, I'll end up with some sort of list, like how you're not meant to like Google how to make a bomb on Google because you would get put on a list for that. I'm not sure if that's like the same rules or something, but I don't know. I imagine so. I imagine.
9 months later, a housekeeper was hired by Phil's widow to help around.
But hey, at least it's not as bad as searching blue waffle on Google. Don't Google that for the people watching, by the way.
now that Phil was gone, and she said as soon as she moved in, she
Unless
started
you want to have PTSD.
hearing strange tapping sounds all through the house, but didn't think anything of it. And so that day, the day she's calling police, she's alone in the Peters residence, and she hears the tapping, and it's coming from the kitchen. And she thinks, oh, it's got to be a woodpecker just outside the house, outside the window. And she said as she looked into the kitchen, on the other side of the kitchen was a door that opened up to a flight of stairs that went to the second floor. And she said it was slowly opening. And out from behind comes this white hand that reaches to the side of the door and begins to pull it open. And she screams, and the hand retracts back into the space. And then she hears it storm up the stairs and run around on the upstairs before going silent again. She ran out of the house, and she ran to a neighbor's house to call the police. The police immediately go to the house, and they go inside, guns drawn, and they're looking for this person because they're thinking perhaps the murderer is back. And they're looking all through the house, and there's nothing. There's not even a sign of a break-in. And so the police go back to the housekeeper and to Miss Peters. They explain that we couldn't find anyone, but given the history of your house, we don't think it's safe for you to be in there. And so the housekeeper didn't go back, and Miss Peters was moved back to the hospital where she could be looked after during the police investigation. At this point, the police decide we're going to...
Wow, what a downgrade. Be moved back to a hospital. What a downgrade. Going from a average house to a hospital. Wow. Sucks to be her.
Stake out this house. We're going to have 2 detectives that are outside this house watching it at all times. And so 2 detectives go, and they're sitting outside, and for a couple of days they're not seeing anything, they're not hearing anything, and they decide to just go inside and have a look around. They both walk into the house, they go upstairs, they look around, they don't see anything, they go back downstairs, and as they're standing on the first floor getting ready to leave, they hear what sounds like a doorknob turning upstairs. They both heard it, so they go upstairs and they start searching different rooms, and one of the detectives goes into the bedroom and opens up a closet, and past all the clothes, bottom left-hand corner, he sees a foot dart into a little space in the back corner of the closet. And without any hesitation, this guy jumps head first into the closet and grabs the foot of this mystery person who's crawling into a tiny little panel in the back of a closet. And he holds on to this person who's fighting with their life to get away, and he starts pulling them out, and he's yelling for his partner to come over. He comes charging in. They both grab this person, and they yank this person out, and they would describe him as the strangest looking person they had ever seen. He was super tall, but rail thin, and his skin was so dirty, it appeared...
Ah, so this is where Frankenstein came from.
...gray. His name was Theodore Coneys, and he had been living in this house for a year. Before Coneys moved in, he had fallen on hard times. He was sleeping in alleyways. And as it started to get colder in September of 1941,
probably for the best,
he decided he would approach his longtime friend, Phil Peters, and he would ask him for some money and maybe...
I was trying to turn the caps lock off, but I accidentally knocked the computer. So, that was a bit of an epic fail. But, yeah, let's just continue.
An opportunity to crash at his house for a couple of days. But, as it happened, when he got to Phil's house, Phil wasn't there. Phil was at the hospital visiting his wife who had a broken hip. And so the house was vacant. And Coneys saw an opportunity and he broke in. And at first his plan was just to steal food, get warmed up a little bit, and then leave. But he noticed when he was looking through the house for things to take that in the back of one of these closets was a panel that led to this tiny little almost secret attic space that wasn't being used for anything because it was impossibly small. You'd have to be incredibly skinny just to get through the little square opening that would bring you into this little space. And then once you got in, you could only get in by slithering head first in. You couldn't stand up. You had to be laying the entire time. You couldn't extend your legs all the way if you're a full-grown adult. So you're kind of tucked up in almost like a pseudo-fetal position. But Coneys saw this as a huge upgrade from living on the streets, and he decided that this is where he's going to live for the winter. And so he went around the house gathering supplies between blankets and food and water, and he filled...
I mean, you might as well just live there full time, not just for the winter. If you're able to find a space like that, you might as well just live there all the time now.
Tiny little space, and then he went back downstairs and he locked the front door again, made sure everything looked the way it was when he showed up, and he went into his little space and shut the door behind him. And when
nice
Phil
purge
came home that
mask.
night, he didn't notice anything, and for the next several weeks, Phil never noticed a thing. Every time Phil would leave, Coneys would sneak out, go downstairs, make himself some coffee, get a bite to eat, and go back up to his little space. He even cut into the house's wiring system and stole one of Phil's radios, brought it into the cubby with him, attached it to the new wiring, and he got to listen to the news so he didn't feel so isolated from the outside world. But about a month later, Coney leaves his little spot to go downstairs because he thinks Phil is gone. He gets to the kitchen, he's going to the fridge. When he shuts the fridge, he looks over, and there's Phil standing there looking at him like, what are you doing in my kitchen? In a panic, Coney grabs the stove shaker and beats Phil to death. Not knowing what else to do, he wipes off the murder.
Yes. When you're caught, just kill the owner. Yes. Very, very good. Yes.
Leaves it where it is. He goes in the fridge, he gets some more food and drink, and he goes right back up to where he lives. He would follow the investigation of Phil Peters' death on his radio, curled up inside of Phil Peters' house. Coney's was quickly found guilty of murder and sentenced to life in prison. After hearing his sentence read to him, he says out loud, "Now I feel safe. I'll have a better home than I've had in years." So that's going to do it, guys. I hope you enjoyed.
Well, that's a positive. He can now be in a better place now, not street now. That sentence wasn't formed correctly. But yeah, now let's go on to this one.
We all like to believe that when we are home, behind the illusion of safety is enough safety, often that someone actually... Most people into their home. Safe.
Come on, get to it already.
Serious, told in story format. Well, then you've discovered the right channel, because that's all I do, and I upload 3 to 4 times a week.
All
so
right.
That's your style, and you might be interested, so you don't miss a beautiful home in Northern California that was just outside the sun.
Wait, no, hold on, I got the wrong one. Hang on a second. Oh, okay, wait, this is the right one.
When I was in high school, my house was broken into. Luckily, me and my family were out of the house, and the way they got in is we just left the door unlocked. It was just stupid on our part. Someone walked right in, stole some money, some jewelry, and my PlayStation. Now, we were okay, and ultimately, financially, we recovered. But what did not go away was that uneasy feeling of being in a place where the safety, the sanctity of that place had been violated. And for me, I could never get that back. I still, at night, quadruple check every lock in my house. Now, I'm not suggesting that you should live your life in a permanent state of fear that someone might break into your home, but...
Well, I've watched enough Mr. Nightmare to tell me that, yes, you should be absolutely afraid. So, Mr. Nightmare has taught me that I should have that logic in mind.
You should never become totally complacent, because somewhere in the world, someone is having their house broken into. It's an unfortunate reality of living on this planet. Now, home invasions range dramatically from something like mine, where no one's home, to way more severe. And so what I've done for today's video is I have found the most terrifying home invasions that I've come across on the internet and ranked them in a top 5. But before we get into the top 5, if you're a fan of the strange, dark, and mysterious delivered in story format, then you've come to the right channel, because that's all I do, and I upload 3, 4, even 5 times every week. So if you're interested in that, I would encourage you to gently give the like button a hug, because honestly, the like button's been through a lot on my channel. It needs a break. Also, please subscribe to my channel.
That's nice. Like button deserves a break.
So you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. Alright, let's get into today's story.
Or the like button on my channel never gets a break. So, oh, by the way, reminder, subscribe, like, share, all that stuff. I don't usually do it, but I heard it helps, so I do it anyway. I'm not one of them desperate YouTubers that wants everybody ever to subscribe and get huge like sub numbers, but I'm not one of them. But you know, I do it occasionally, you know, because I heard it helps, and probably does like stuff for the algorithm and all that. But anyway, I'm completely sidetracking. We need to watch this.
In 2014, a 16-year-old girl living in the UK.
Alright, Snapchat stalker, okay.
And she was in her bedroom and she was flipping through her phone when she gets attacked.
I like the use of this Phantom Manor from Disneyland Paris in here. This look, well, it's not, but it looks like Phantom Manor from Disneyland Paris. That's what this like building looks like. Maybe it was from this image, actually. I don't know.
The message was coming from a boy she had recently met via Snapchat. He told her to go to her window and look outside because he was right near her apartment. Now, this girl did not know
this is already nope. This is already nope.
So it was very creepy to be told, "I'm on your property." But either way, she went to the window to look. There's no.
Wait, I'm confused. Didn't he say apartment and then I'm on the property? I'm really confused. I'm a bit lost now. And the story has only begun. I'm already lost.
And it's late, so she can't really tell if maybe he's hiding or something. But she feels really creeped out by this, and she ends up leaving her bedroom and going into her mother's room and tells her mom, "Hey, I'm going to sleep in here with you tonight." She doesn't tell her mom about the text message. Maybe she was embarrassed. We don't know. So the girl is laying in bed, her mom's asleep, and as she's about to put her phone down and actually go to sleep, she gets another text from this boy.
"I'm in your house."
She immediately wakes her mom up. She shows her mom. Her mom's like, "Oh no." She jumps out of bed. Every light goes on. Runs downstairs to confront this person who's apparently in their apartment, but he's not there. The mother ultimately decides, after not finding anything, that, he's not here. We didn't hear anybody come in the house. The doors are locked. Everything's locked. So they did another sweep through the apartment and checked every entrance, locked everything. Let's just go to bed. So they go back into the mother's bedroom, shut and lock the door, and the two of them go to sleep. The next morning, the mother is still sleeping. The girl wakes up a little bit early, and she decides to go into her bedroom. As soon as she walked in, she would later tell reporters that immediately she felt like she was being watched. And so she starts doing a cursory check of her small bedroom. She, pulls the door aside, looks behind the door. She opens her closet, pulls her clothes aside, looking around, there's no one in there. And she's thinking to herself, that boy got to my head, and I'm psyching myself out. She looks down at her bed, and she used to keep all of her shoes lined up next to her bed. And she was really OCD about how she organized her shoes. And she noticed that one set of shoes was out of place. It was a subtle thing that really only she would be able to recognize. And so she gets down on her knees to rearrange the shoes, and that's when she sees something out of the corner of her eye. Her bed was slightly elevated, and so she had a little bit of a line of sight under the bed as soon as she was kneeling. And under the bed is a face. And it's the face of the boy who had said, "I'm outside your house." And he's the same one who said, "I'm in your house." And he's smiling up at her, and he's clutching his phone, looking at her. She runs out of the room. She runs to her mom's room and says, "He's in there. He's in there." The mother comes barreling in, protective mama coming in. The boy's out from under.
Yep, he's out. He's out. Yeah, I knew he was going to get out before he could be caught. I knew it.
The boy would turn out to be Kyle Ravenscroft, and he had very quickly become obsessed.
What a last name, Ravenscroft. What a last name. That's a hell of a last name. Oddly suitable for a criminal, Ravenscroft.
With this girl, and he just wanted to be close to her. And so when she got,
why does like Ravenscroft sound like a DeviantArt author name, or a Wattpad author name? I don't know. I don't know why it gives me that vibe.
A text message that was, "Hey, come look out your window." He was hiding. And when she went into her mom's room, he could actually see her go into the mom's room, and he climbed up the side of the apartment into the window that was open, shut it, and climbed under.
Well, that's why you close your windows. That's why you close your windows. Don't leave your windows open. So yeah, and keep doors locked and vents locked if you have vents. Keep crawl spaces locked if you have them. They're not a thing here. I know they are in the US though.
So that when the mother and the daughter were searching the house, he was already in the house. So they locked him into the house. He was ultimately given a very small sentence. I think it was a couple weeks in jail, a fine, and some community service. But no matter what the sentence was...
Sounds about right for UK. Sounds about right.
I'm sure that girl will have to deal with
UK charges, in a nutshell.
Of that event for the rest of her life.
Meth Banshee. You can see that.
In 2014, a couple came back to their house in Seattle, Washington, and found it absolutely destroyed, but in totally baffling ways. All of their shoes that had the soles inside.
Alright, I'll move back to the corner now.
Someone had taken a big can of paint, taken the lid off, and flipped it upside down on the top of the toilet. Their mail had been ripped to pieces, and it was laying all over the ground. Their clothes have been ripped out of all the drawers. There was this piece of wood that they didn't know where it came from that had a single screw screwed into it that had been wedged between a door and the door frame, but it wasn't blocking.
Yeah, for someone on meth, they seem to know what they're doing. They know what they're doing when they're on meth.
From opening. It was just like someone wedged it in the middle of the door for some reason. There was hand lotion all over the door handles of some of the doors in their house. There was also a purse sitting on their bed.
If they had a son, he was probably pissed that his lotion was wasted.
ID card of a 27-year-old woman who they didn't recognize. The couple does a quick look around, but is worried someone might still be there, so
Or daughter, who knows?
they leave and they call the police. The police show up and they're just as confused as the couple because nothing was stolen. There was no sign of forced entry. It was just like someone came in there and wrecked the house and then left. It was very confusing. And so ultimately the police just went back to their precinct to write up the report and told the couple, hey, lock your doors and, be on the lookout for someone trying to rob you again. After the police left, the couple began cleaning up the mess inside of their house. And after a couple hours of doing that, they decided, we'll finish this up tomorrow. They're laying in bed and they start hearing this sound that sounds like an animal dying coming from underneath their bed. Now, they didn't think this could be a person because there was
It is a person.
no space
Most definitely a
underneath
person.
their bed. It was, barely any clearance under their beds. They're thinking an animal must have gotten in here. We had the doors wide open as we were cleaning stuff out. Maybe an animal got in here. They're like, no, we're not going to deal with this. They jump up and run out of the bedroom and call the police again. Police show up, they go into the bedroom, and there is a person underneath their bed. 90-pound, 27-year-old crazy woman who was high on meth, carrying a knife and a hypodermic needle. And she was under there burrowing a hole underneath the bed. She was the same woman that was on that ID card in the purse.
That seems a lot of effort. I don't know why you would just do it the easy way. Why are you digging a hole through the bed? I shouldn't really be surprised they're on meth, but I don't know, still pretty weird logic there. Don't know why you had to take the slow way.
They had found earlier. Her story was she climbed up the tree that was outside the window and jumped into the second floor window.
Nice
while the
stock
couple was
footage.
gone. She ransacked the house for reasons we don't understand and then went under the bed. And there was so little clearance under the bed that the couple did not think to look under there for people. So that whole time they were cleaning up, she was still in the house. Luckily, she didn't get all the way through. Who knows what she would have done if she'd actually punctured all the way through.
Something in the bathroom.
In 2017, a young college girl who was living alone in an apartment started to notice that something didn't feel right. In the morning, she'd get up and she'd open her fridge, and some of the food that she would leave in there, it appeared like there was less of it. A couple times she would wake up and she'd walk out into her living room, and one of the pillows would be in a different position or had even fallen off the couch. There was just little things happening in her apartment that collectively was actually pretty unsettling and was starting to scare her. And she started having these nightmares at night that someone was breaking into her apartment. One night, she wakes up from one of those nightmares and she's drenched in sweat. She decides she's going to take a shower before she goes back to sleep. She goes to her bathroom and she brings her phone. She would play music while she was taking a shower. She would put her phone right up against the window that was next to the shower curtain, so at any time she could reach over, change the song, and then keep showering. She had a very old door on the bathroom where there was actually a key on the inside of the door that if you wanted to, you could actually lock the door and then take the key out, and the only way to open it again, even from the inside, is with that key. So she's taking her shower, she's listening to music, and at some point she wants to change the song. And so
I don't know why. I don't know. People that listen to music in the shower are just and sing as well. Like they're just so like insufferable people. I don't know why they exist. Honestly, I don't know why it's a thing people do. It's just a shower. Why are you treating it like Ultra Music Festival? It's not Ultra Music Festival. It's just a shower. Like, calm down, guys. Whoever watches this stream or video when it's uploaded, like, don't do that. Don't do that. You're better than that. Come on.
Pulls the shower curtain back just enough to reach her hand out to touch next on her phone when she stops. The phone was reflecting something in the middle of her bathroom. And it was a dark figure standing in her bathroom, shoulders squared up to the actual shower. So someone is standing in the middle of her bathroom, facing her right now. I don't know how she did this, but she stayed composed. She retracted her hand, turned the water all the way to scalding hot.
Oh,
She took
okay.
the shower head out, and once the water was so hot there was steam all over the bathroom, in one fell swoop, she ripped open the curtain and sprayed the water directly on the face of the person standing right there next to her.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. That's a high IQ move from the woman there.
Their face and screaming in pain. She grabs the key.
Also, karma for the intruder as well. Karma.
On her door on the inside, locks it, takes the key out, runs out of her bathroom, slams it behind her, locking the intruder in the bathroom. The girl...
Well, now your whole apartment floor's gonna be wet now.
...to her kitchen to get her...
I'd be more mad about that, actually.
One nice knife. But when she went into the kitchen...
It's not there.
...one butcher knife, she couldn't find it. She ditches the idea of getting a knife and instead grabs a towel and runs out of her apartment. She makes it outside. She calls the police. The police show up. The girl gives them the key to the bathroom. They go into her apartment and they unlock the bathroom and they pull this person out. It was this crazy lady who used to live at this apartment, and she had
Yep, makes sense. That checks out. Yep.
And had been sneaking in whenever this girl wasn't there, or at night she would sneak into her apartment and she would sleep there on the couch and then leave before the girl woke up. So as the police bring this woman away, one of the officers breaks off and goes over to the girl who owns the apartment, and he holds up an evidence bag, and it's the girl's butcher's knife. The woman had...
Well, this just shows that not all... I'm talking about the girl, by the way, not intruder, by the way. This just shows not all superhero wears... Blah, blah. Let me start again. Not all superheroes wear capes. Sometimes they wear nothing. And thank goodness she brought a towel outside. That's good.
From the kitchen and was standing in the bathroom waiting.
I don't know. I don't know.
Get out of the shower, and the officer just says, "Looks like she wanted her apartment back."
Late in the midnight hour.
In 1981, a 9-year-old boy discovered that if he was really quiet,
I hope I don't get copyright for that.
He could sneak out of his bedroom at night, go down into the kitchen, and eat as much junk food as he wanted. One night in the summer that year, his family went out for this huge dinner at this amazing restaurant, and when they came back, they had all these leftovers. And the boy really wanted to eat the remainder of the sweet and sour pork. He was really excited about it. So everyone goes to bed.
Ew.
He's really deliberate. You know, he starts sneaking down the stairs, being ultra careful.
How an intruder gets you.
Stairs hasn't made a sound. And that's when he freezes because he hears what sounds like a fork making a little clinking sound against the counter. And he thinks, my parents have got to be in there. And if they see me, I'm going to be totally busted. So I don't want them to see me.
Good, I hope you are.
He turns his head around the corner because he was obscured by the wall. And he pokes his head just far enough in to where he can see into the kitchen. And standing in the middle of the kitchen is this skinny man that he's never seen before, drinking milk directly from the carton.
Is it Frankenstein from the other story?
The kid holds back a scream, sneaks back up the stairs. When he finally gets upstairs, he runs into his parents' room and he tells
So I guess he
everyone.
escaped his prison cell.
Downstairs, ready to confront whoever's there. There's no one there. There's not even a sign that anyone was there. So they look everywhere and they can't find anything. And so the parents don't believe him. And everybody goes back to bed, and that's that. The boy was very confident at what he saw. Although he did feel like, I mean, I guess I could have imagined it.
No, you didn't.
You
didn't.
Really close attention.
Don't let them manipulate you like that, alright?
In the mornings, he would go downstairs before everybody else, and he would see if there was any sign of someone having been in the kitchen. He noticed at one point that the napkin holder had been moved to the wrong side of the counter. He also noticed one time there was a mug that was in the sink that no one had used the night before. And so he's thinking...
I swear I heard noises outside. But, I don't know, I must have been hearing things.
...that someone is sneaking into our house. I don't know how, I don't know where, but I'm confident that it's still happening. But his parents didn't believe him. 3 months after the boy has seen this person in his kitchen, he's in his bedroom, he's just laying there, and he's looking up at the vent on his ceiling, an air conditioning vent. And as he's looking at it, he sees a pair of eyes go over the vent, looking down at him. They
Nope.
blink, and he can
Nope,
tell
nope,
it's
nope,
eyes
nope, nope,
looking
nope,
at him. It takes him a second to process it, but he freaks. Runs out of his room.
He's not
runs
believed
to his
again.
parents'
Let me guess.
room,
He's
barely
not believed
talking.
again.
He's like, there's someone in the vent. The parents run into his room. They check crawl spaces, the attic. They're shining a light into the vent. They can't find anything. And so once again, it turns into, you're making this up. You have an overactive imagination. There's nothing going on in this house. But a week goes by, and their house started to smell really bad. And the majority of the stink was coming from that vent. In the
Oh, shocker. Coming from the vent.
Maggots falling.
Who could have seen that coming?
So they got the air conditioning people over to have a look, and they were totally confident that what they were going to find is a dead animal up inside the vent. But that's not what they find. they find a dead man who had been living in their ceiling. There was literally a cot that had been set up inside of their ceiling. There were drawings of this boy taken from the perspective of looking down at him through the vent. Someone had been living in their ceiling over the boy's bed for months. And
imagine if he drew a picture of the boy screaming. That would be funny.
Died up there. The man was never identified and was buried at John Doe. And I'm sure the parents felt really bad about not believing their son.
Imagine the arguments that they have in the future. Oh, well, why didn't you do this? Oh, remember that time when you didn't believe me and a person died in our vents? Do you remember that? Do you remember that, Mum and Dad? Yeah, do you remember that? Yeah. Who's the intelligent one here? Who's the dumb one here? Yeah. How'd that feel?
In 2013, a young woman was living alone in an apartment and she was on the phone with her boyfriend. As she's chatting with her boyfriend, she decides to go get her mail. She walks into the main hall to this area where all the mail slots are on the wall. She's chatting, she opens up her slot, she gets her mail, shuts her slot.
This sounds like very old.
Her apartment, opens the door, goes back in, and she goes to her bedroom. And she's sitting on her bed, feet on the floor, and she's got her phone, and she kind of tucks it against her shoulder, and she's rifling through her mail. And as she's flipping through her mail, the phone drops. And the way that it lands is it kind of bounces backwards underneath the bed. She puts her mail in the bed and she gets down on her
Okay, well, it's clearly not an iPhone because it would have just absolutely been obliterated as the first drop. Although, to be fair, I've dropped my phone a couple times. Hasn't broken. Although I haven't done it on a hard floor, so yeah. Maybe that's why it's not broken, but yeah. But oh no, iPhones I don't think are as fragile as people make them seem. I think they can like survive more things than people seem.
To extend her arm out to get her phone that's now well under the bed.
Let me guess, someone's there.
Looking for the phone, she freezes and she stifles a scream. There's a man in the fetal position tucked against the far side underneath the bed, not looking at her. The girl stays composed. She gets her phone. She goes, "Hey, I'm going to take a quick shower. Let me call you right back." With her phone in hand, she walks right out, goes into her bathroom, which is right next door, shuts it, locks it, turns on the shower, opens her window, and jumps out.
Whoa, another IQ move. Wow. These people are actually smart.
The police show up, they go inside,
nice change.
Bring out this crazy, deranged-looking man. As they're taking him away in handcuffs, one of the officers comes over to her, and he says to her, "You know, you're very lucky you did what you did, because we found him in your apartment standing outside of the bathroom holding a knife. He was waiting for you." The girl believes that when she went to get her mail, she was distracted because she was talking to her boyfriend, and she must not have shut her apartment door, at which point...
Okay, well that's where you done goofed. You left the door open. Like, that's obviously going to happen, isn't it? Obviously someone's going to enter your apartment. You're not going to close the door. She's smart and dumb. She's both of the things. I don't know how you can even achieve that. I don't know. I don't know how you get to that point, to be honest.
This guy must have snuck in and gotten under her bed. The man was committed to a mental institution, and the girl's boyfriend moved in with her the next day. So I hope you enjoyed today.
If I was a boyfriend, I'd be like, you're fine. Yeah, alright. See you later. You'll be alright. You know, you can deal with this on your own. Yeah, you'll be alright. Yeah, don't really care. Yeah, don't really care. That's it for that one. Actually, we'll watch the outro just to like get some filler in.
If you haven't already, please gently give the like button a hug because it needs a break. It's been through a lot on my channel. Also, please subscribe to my channel and turn on all post notifications so you don't miss any of my weekly uploads. If you have a story suggestion...
Alright, no, we can edit that now. The video, not stream yet.
Don't forget, we survived for 200,000 years. Chris had been working as a park ranger in southeastern Pennsylvania for a number of years, and by and large, he enjoyed his occupation. Some of the time, he got to do what he loved, which was hiking in the forest. And some of the time it required doing something he hated, which was office work that usually required staying late at night. On one of those late nights in August of 2007, Chris's boss, Mike, said that he needed to leave the office and go down the access road to his tool shed.
I accidentally forgot to press reaction screen 2. Sorry about that.
He needed to get some equipment and bring it back up to the office for some reason, and he said he'd be back in about 15 minutes.
That house is entirely made of wood. Look at that. That is a wooden house. Look, nearly all of that is wood. And look, some little slant bricks. I know wooden houses are made of wood, duh. But this is like completely wood. Like, my god.
As soon as Mike left,
I've seen wooden houses, but this is very wooden, my goodness.
Chris decided, you know what, I'm going to take a break from my work and I'm going to step outside for a minute. Right in front of the office building was a little staff parking lot, and then about 50 meters beyond that was the edge of this really dense forest where the access road that Mike had just gone down to get to the tool shed basically split right through the middle and went straight out past the office. When Chris stepped outside to take his break, he sat down on the front steps that overlooked that parking lot and the access road, and he was just kind of looking out towards the forest, not thinking about what he was looking at, just kind of mindlessly sitting there, when all of a sudden he just started to feel like someone's watching me. And instinctively he turned around to look back into the office, as if maybe someone was behind him, but he remembered that he and Mike were the only ones there that night, so no one's going to be behind him. And so he turned back around and he looked out at the parking lot and he didn't see any movement, and he looked down to the edge of the forest, which he could see because the moon was fairly bright that night, so the illumination was pretty good. And there was no movement against the tree line, there was no animals, there was no people, and Mike had not come back yet. So there's nothing going on in front of him, there's nothing going on behind him, but he just could not shake this feeling that someone was watching him. And so Chris, he's not easily spooked. He's used to being out in the forest in the daytime and at night. He's used to being at this office. A lot of times he worked at the office on his own at night. So he's used to this environment. And so he thought, you know what, I'm gonna go look around. And so he walks down the steps and he walks into the parking lot and he begins looking behind some of the cars. There's only a handful in the lot. There's nothing in the lot. And he keeps walking till he's about 10 meters away from the edge of the forest. And he looks into the forest and it's too dark to see anything. And there's nothing out here. There's no movement. There's no animals. Mike is still not back yet. And so even though he could not shake this sense that someone is watching him, he felt like, you know what? I did my diligence and there's no one out here, so it's just got to be in my head. And so he decides he's going to go back inside. And so he turns around and he starts walking back up towards the office, when all of a sudden he hears this whooshing sound come past his head. And he didn't know what it was, but it sounded like someone took a stick and threw it overhand, so it's spinning like a tomahawk as it passed by its head. And because the sound was so loud and he was already on edge about someone potentially watching him, that he actually dove as soon as he heard it and fell to the ground and scrambled around and looked at the tree line from where this thing came from, but there's no one there. And he scrambles to his feet and he's still looking around and he starts backpedaling towards the office with his eyes still on the forest, and his attention kind of shifts from the forest to what was just thrown at me. And he turns around and starts walking around looking for something on the ground, like a stick, to see if something really was thrown at him, but he can't find anything. He didn't do an exhaustive search. He didn't look under every single car, but an initial scan turned up nothing. And then he turns back to the forest and he doesn't see anything out there. And even though, again, he feels totally stressed out, like something's out here and I can't see it, he's like, am I going crazy? Did that really happen? Because I can't find this big stick that apparently flew past my head. So is this all happening in my head? But regardless, he's totally freaked out and he sprints back inside the office and locks every door. 20 minutes later, Mike comes blazing up the access road. He stops in front of the office and runs up the stairs. Chris goes over, unlocks the door, and he lets him in. And Chris is about to tell him about this crazy stick throwing incident, but he can tell Mike is really upset about something. Probably more upset about whatever happened to him than Chris is about this stick throwing thing. And so Chris tables his story, he locks the doors behind Mike, and he turns to him and he says, "What's going on? What's wrong with you?" At first, Mike doesn't say anything. He just paces back and forth inside the office. And then finally, Chris calms him down and he gets him to explain what happened. Mike tells him that he was down at the tool shed, which is about a half mile down the access road and about 20 meters off the road into the forest. And he's at the shed, it's open, and he's pulling out the different pieces of equipment he's going to bring back to the office. And he says all of a sudden, all the hairs on his body stand up. He's got goosebumps. And immediately he thinks, someone's watching me. And he turns around and there's no one there. He looks to his right and his left. He kind of pokes his head in the shed, like is someone hiding in the shed? There's no one in there. He walks to the back of the shed. There's no one behind the shed. And he's just totally stumped why he's feeling this way. He goes back to the front of the shed and he's going over in his mind what made him feel this way. And he can't put his finger on it, but he cannot shake this feeling of someone watching him. And it's making him totally anxious. So he gets all the things he needs from the shed as quick as he can. He locks it up, he turns, and he starts speed walking back out to his truck. When he gets about 5 meters away, he hears footsteps running right to left behind him, back where the shed is. And because he was already completely on edge about someone watching him in the woods somewhere, he doesn't even turn around to see what that is. He knows he needs to run to his car and get inside and put steel between him and whatever is out there. Once he's inside, he locks the door, he turns on the ignition, and looks one last time in the direction of where he came from. And to his horror, there is a man walking into the woods right next to the shed, turning the corner behind and disappearing into the woods. His instincts were spot on. He was being watched. And that's when Mike hit the gas and sped back to the office. Chris then tells Mike about his stick throwing incident because all of a sudden that seems a whole lot more real, and they both agree that whoever threw something at Chris is probably the same guy who was hiding near the shed with Mike. Concerned this guy might come back and break into the office, they stay the night there and they watch the whole time. They don't see him again. And the next morning they file a report and they tell the incoming park rangers what happened. But after this, there were no more reports of this strange hooded figure roaming around the forest. And to this day, Chris and Mike have no idea who he is or what he wanted. But they can both agree, whoever he was bad news.
Well, yeah, duh. He's a stalker. Obviously, he's bad news.
In the summer of 2015,
he's badder news than the sun.
A young man named Paul was on his last day of a 7-day solo backpacking trip through a very remote area in Utah called the Dark Canyon Wilderness. Dark Canyon gets its name from its steep walls that block light in the morning and in the late afternoon. It's an area that's only accessible by foot, and it's not uncommon to go in there and not see another person the whole time you're there. That morning, Paul got up and set off on a day hike that would take him through a very forested area up onto a plateau where he planned to camp out for the night. About a mile into the hike, he found some amazing elk antlers and he decided he wanted to keep them. So he threw them on his backpack and rested them at the top and continued on his hike. But the added 15 pounds of weight proved to be far more exhausting than he was anticipating.
Yeah, it's not a wise decision there.
He blew through all of his water. Even though he was within 1 mile of his final destination, this plateau, he decided to stop because he was so dehydrated, he needed to find water. So he puts his pack down, he puts the elk antlers down, and he starts walking around, and amazingly, he does find some water. Granted, it was kind of a gross puddle of standing water, but he figured, I can boil this, and it should be okay. And as he's preparing a fire to boil this standing water, he figures, you know what, if I'm making a fire here, I might as well just make my camp here. So he sets up his tent, and then he makes a fire, and he's about to start boiling this water when he realizes how dumb he's being. If there's a puddle of standing water right here, then probably just a little ways upstream, there's going to be some running water. Why don't I not boil this crappy water that will only yield, a couple sips of water and go look for the running water where I can drink as much as I want? So he puts the pot down and he leaves all of his...
Yeah, but running water also has germs in it. Like, what if an animal's died in the running water? Why did I say it like that? Running water. What if an animal died in the running water and just lots of bacteria in the water, so it's not completely safe. There's still bacteria. Let's get that right.
Here at the campsite, and he begins walking up this mountain to hopefully find a stream. And after about a half mile of walking up this mountain, he finds this little spring. Immediately, he's down on hands and knees, drinking as much water as he possibly can because he's super dehydrated. And after he's drank for quite a while, he reaches down to his belt where he kept his water bottles, and he realized he left all of his gear, including his water bottles, at camp. So he didn't have a way to collect this water. And so he's like, shoot, I gotta go back to camp and get the bottle and come back. I'm gonna burn a bunch of energy. But he's like, you know what can you do? I need the water. And so he gets up and he turns around and he starts walking back towards
How can someone
camp.
be this dumb? Why is he so forgetful?
Really anxious as he's walking back. he can't help but feel like someone's behind him watching him. And he kept turning his head thinking he's going to see someone just over the mountain who's quietly stalking him, and he just could not shake this feeling. And so as he's walking back to camp, every little sound he hears is totally throwing him off. Every little rustling leaf, every little bird overhead, he's totally on edge because he's convinced someone is behind me or someone's over there, someone's watching me. He finally gets back to camp, he gets his water bottles, and he considered not going back to the spring because he didn't want to cover that distance again because of how stressful it just was. But ultimately, he knows he needs the water. So either he's going to sit here for a really long time and boil a bunch of stagnant water, or he can just suck it up, walk to the spring, get some water, come back, and be good. Before he walks up to the spring, he grabs a really big stick to use as a club, and then he walks up. So now he's got some protection. And immediately, as he begins that half-mile trek to the spring, the anxiety pours right back over him, and he can't help but feel like someone is watching him. But he gets up to the spring, he fills his water bottles, he turns around, and he starts walking back, and he walks down this little rock face and lands on the trail he had just been on a minute ago, and he stops because he sees something on the ground that wasn't there before. A fresh mountain lion print is placed right in between two of his footprints.
To be honest, I'd be more scared of a human following me than a lion.
There's a mountain lion somewhere right around here that's not just watching me, it's hunting me. Paul doesn't really know what to do, so he runs to his campsite and gets in his tent and huddles in his tent for the rest of the night, hoping a mountain lion doesn't attack him. And fortunately, it does not. And what he thinks probably happened was when he picked up those elk antlers and put them on his backpack and was walking around with them, he probably attracted the mountain lion that thought he was an elk and therefore food.
All right, well, that's the end. That is going to be the end of the stream. Like I said before, like, subscribe, all that stuff. And yeah, see you guys next stream.